These two English words are often confused. On and about can be used to introduce a topic, but on is usually more formal, serious, or specialised. Look at these examples. First of all, I'm watching a movie about the 19th century. I use about here because I'm enjoying this casually. It's more informal, relaxed, less intense, less in-depth. But if I say I'm reading a book on ancient history, then the book is well-researched and informative. It's much more serious, much more formal. And this video teaches you 40 things about English that are often confusing, like this difference between on and about. By the end, you will no longer be confused. Over or above. When something is not directly higher, we tend to use above. For example, the mountain stood above the valley. Notice how the mountain is not directly above the valley. It's up and to the side. And in this situation, we would use above rather than over. Although you can use over with a few limited phrases that you can see on the screen here. Compare this with a balloon is flying above me or a balloon is flying over me. Here the balloon is directly up. In this case, we can use either. When something is covering something else, though, use over and not above, like this. If you see a fire, pour water over it. What we mean is over, cover, completely on top of. Over, not above for this. What about advise or advice? What's the difference? These words mean the same. So you're recommending things to someone, but the ISE ending is a verb and the ICE ending is a noun. So here's the verb example. We advise you to go to a dentist. Look at the state of these teeth. This person really needs to go to a dentist. So we advise because advise contains the activity ISE. But the dentist gave me some good advice, ICE, because here advice is the noun form. After all, well, the two individual words mean this. After often means following, and all is similar to everything. But put them together, you get something else. After all, first of all means unexpectedly. Good news, I will be able to start a new course in January. After all. This person has said after all to mean unexpectedly, perhaps because they didn't think they had enough money, and then by some surprise they found out that they did have enough money. So it was unexpected. After all reflects that. But it could also mean important extra information. For example here, I think I can manage the course on my own. After all, I got top marks on the last course I took. So after all here really means important extra information. This is something else to say about the situation, which is important to make my point. So put the two together, you get something completely different, and you get these two different possible meanings. How about alternate and alternative? With alternate, in its adjective form, we mean two things that you can change between. The two parents take their children out on alternate days. Look at the timetable for the week. We have red crosses and blue crosses. One parent takes their child out on the red crosses and the other on the blue crosses. So we go red, then blue, then red, then blue. It's alternate days. With the verb form, although the meaning is similar, take in turns. Notice where the stress falls. This time it's alternate or alternated in the past. It's quite a different pronunciation to the adjective form. The doctors alternated between patient care and checking medicines. So again, they're doing one thing, then the next thing, then the next thing, but this time it's the verb form. The verb contains the activity. Alternative means different or another option. It's quite different to alternate or alternate. Alternative medicine is available from the supermarkets. What that means is different to what you'd normally expect, or it's another option compared to medicine that you could normally expect. Let's move on to allude and elude. First of all, allude. This means to give a vague idea. That's what this speaker did. In her speech, she alluded to her plans for the new year, but she didn't directly say what they were. So she used some words that made you think of something, but not exactly what her plans were. Allude. Elude means to avoid. The cat tried to catch the mouse, but the mouse eluded it. So here, the mouse avoided the cat. Quite different. Rise or arise. Well, in one sense, they mean similar things. They both mean get up. So someone starts in a low position and then they take a higher position. Rise, arise. But there are some differences in other meanings that they have. Because arise can also mean appear or start. Look at this car here. We can't buy the car. Why? A problem has arisen. A problem simply came from nowhere. We weren't expecting it, but it has appeared. A problem has started, which means we can't buy the car. Rise does not have this meaning, but it has another meaning that arise does not have, and that means go higher. Prices have risen. Now we can't afford the car. So here, risen means the prices go higher. We would not say the prices have arisen. When we say arise to mean get up, there's a physical connection where someone starts low and then physically rises up themselves. But here it's more of an abstract meaning, and we would not use arise for this. As and as can be used for comparisons. For example, this car isn't as fast as my last car. Here we have two things, we're comparing them for speed. This car has one speed, my last car had a higher speed. So I say this car isn't as fast as my last car. What I really mean is this car is slower than my last car. So normally we have as at the beginning of the phrase, then as with the noun that comes after. But we don't always have to do this. We can omit the final as if we already know what we are comparing. For instance, I'm keeping my old car. The new car isn't as fast. And notice we finish with only one as fast. We don't include the other part. Why? Because we already know we're comparing it to my old car. Ask may seem a straightforward word, but do you know the difference between ask and ask for? Ask, when it comes with for, means requesting something. He asked for a drink. There was a request for a drink. When we don't use for after ask, it simply means tell me something. She asked a question. So the question is what she said. But with ask for, the drink is what she wanted. So there's quite a different meaning there. Before we go on, let me remind you of my advanced English grammar course for C1 or C2 level students. This is designed especially to help you with mistakes that students of a high English level often make. So we're not interested in the basics of English on this course. We're interested in getting your English right to a high level. I teach a number of classes. It's over 10 hours long, and it's all about pointing out things that maybe you haven't got quite right yet. You'll take the course, some of them, if you're a high-level learner, some of the features of the course you'll be confident with, but I'm sure there will be a few features where you need more confidence, more revision, more practice, more guidance. There's a link in the description to this video. Click on that to find out more. Let's go back to our confusing words and rules, and let's go on to between or among. What's the difference between or among, literally? Because they mean similar things, don't they? Well, Yes, they mean in the middle of, but between usually refers to being in the middle of two things. For example, this valley is situated between two mountains. Two things, something in the middle, between. Among is for more. Among usually refers to being between multiple things. In the second picture, you can see there's a number of mountains. There are some people in there, and they are walking among several mountains. They're not between two mountains. There's lots of mountains. So instead of between here, we use among. Lend or borrow can often be confusing. Let's make this clear. Borrow means you take from someone for a period. I borrowed this book from the library. Lend means you give to someone for a period. The library lent me this book. To avoid confusion, you need to think that the subject is doing the activity I describe here. So with borrow, it's the subject of the sentence that does the borrowing. The subject takes from someone. I borrowed this book. I took this book from someone for a period of time, and eventually I'll give it back. With lend, the library lent me this book. The library is the subject. The library does the activity. The library gives the book to me for a period. So borrow and lend. How about different? Again, different could seem straightforward, but there are some peculiarities, again, when comparing American and British English. Different from means not the same as, and this seems to be used in both America and Britain. For example, I chose a different path from my friend. Both sides of the Atlantic, you can use this, no problem. Different to seems to be more common in British English. It means the same. I chose a different path to my friend, not the same as. But if you're going to America, you might hear this, different than. And this means not the same as in American English. So different from, use anywhere. Different to is more in Britain. Different than, more in America. But as the world becomes more of a global place, this is getting more mixed up. So expect to see some overlap increasing over time. Desert or desert. This is a desert. And this is a place with no life, like the Sahara Desert. This is a dessert, something sweet you eat after the main course. So where you see the two S's, we mean the pudding, and the stress is at the end, dessert. Desert has an extra complication because desert here is the noun form, which means the place with no life, but it also has a verb form, which means to leave. And here the stress goes at the end as well. Desert, with a single S, is a verb meaning to leave something. So, it and that can all follow the word do to refer to the previous action. In the picture here, we see someone shopping for food. Here's a question someone asked them before. Have you bought the food yet? And the answer was no, but I will do so later. Now, what does do so mean? Well, do means the activity and so means in the same way. So it's referring to the previous sentence. It's referring to buying the food. Have you bought the food yet? No, but I will buy the food later. Instead of saying buy the food, we refer back to the information the person said in the question. Do so simply means the activity that you've just mentioned. The same with the second example. Don't worry, you don't need to buy the food. I'll do it tomorrow. So here, do it, just like with do so, is referring back to buy the food. It's a replacement. Do so is a little bit more formal. Can we do this with other auxiliaries apart from do? Well, no. They don't mean the same when they follow other auxiliary verbs. So I am so is a phrase we just simply wouldn't use. I have that. If we said I have that, we mean something belongs to me, which I can see in the distance or think about in the distance. But it does not mean refer to the previous action for the action that I'm going to do. So quite a different meaning. Do, so, do it, do that. Quite different to am so, have that, and so on. Owing to or due to. Now, in most situations, these mean exactly the same thing. They introduce a clause giving a reason. Owing to the king's visit, school is cancelled today. Due to the king's visit, many roads are closed in the town. But due to can also come after the verb to be. The reason why the roads were closed was due to the visit of the king, not owing to, just due to here. What about the word else? This is used after a range of referring words, meaning more or alternative. What else means more or alternative, and it comes after referring words like anything, everything, nothing, nobody. It can come after relative pronouns, which, who, when, words which refer to something previously mentioned, as in the example here. I don't like any of the food options on the menu. Do you have anything else? So this means, do you have anything more or anything alternative? But there's a change when else comes after or. When it comes after or, it means if not. For instance, we need to leave early in the morning or else the traffic will get too bad in the city. We need to leave early in the morning. If not, the traffic will get too bad in the city. So or changes the meaning of else when they're together. Sometimes people use or else as a threat. You need to work harder or else. Full stop. It's basically a threat. If you say or else on its own, that means there's trouble if you don't do it. Specially or especially causes confusion for students from particular backgrounds where there isn't a separation between these words in your own language. So for some of you, this will be important. Both words can mean a large amount. For example, you need to come this week to class. It's an especially or especially long lesson. So here we're referring to it being a large amount of the word that comes after, a large amount of long, basically a really, really long class. But they also have separate meanings, and in reality, the separate meanings are far more common than this one. Especially can mean the most important, and it usually means this. For example, you need to read everything carefully, especially page 16. This is the most important page. We would not use specially in this case, just especially. Specially can mean for this reason. The lesson was specially designed for students like you. 99% of the time we will use specially here. Just occasionally you might see especially for you. Very occasionally we lapse into especially for the same meaning, but the standard way of describing this is with specially. How about neither or neither of? Now, neither, usually it comes with nor, neither nor, means none of two things. For instance, would you like tea or coffee? You could just simply say no, or if you want to be a bit more formal, you could say, I would like neither tea nor coffee. Can I have a cold drink instead? But neither of is sometimes necessary instead of neither in these two situations. First of all, before determiners. So neither of the options on the menu interest me. So the, being an article, is a type of determiner. We wouldn't say neither of options, or we wouldn't, or equally, we wouldn't say neither the options. We would never say neither the options. When we have the or other determiners, we need this of after neither. And also with pronouns, neither of them arrived on time. We wouldn't say neither them arrived on time. We need to add in this of after neither. Remind or remember often confuses people. Remind is when you tell someone again. And remember is when you think of something again. So let's look at remind. My grandparents reminded me to take off my shoes when I entered their house. They told me again. They told me before, and now they tell me again. They reminded me. Remember, I did all on my own though. No one helped me. This is where I think of something again. I remember to take my shoes off when I entered my grandparents' house. So I got to their house and I thought of it. I remembered before anyone told me. Sometime, and sometimes. Sometime when they're separated, some and then time, this means a period of time, and usually a long period of time. For example, I've been living in my current house for some time. This really means a period of time, and I probably mean a long period of time. But sometime when the words are together means something quite different. It means at any time. I will move house sometime in the future. This means not now, not on a fixed day. It will be in the future, but it could be any day in the future. It's not a period of time. It's a fixed moment, but I don't know when yet. And sometimes means on some occasion. Sometimes I get bored of living here. Not every day, but just perhaps on some days. Sometimes they're together and there's an S at the end here.